The sun hadn't fully risen, but Emily's alarm pierced the quiet of her small apartment. She rubbed her eyes, already feeling the weight of the day ahead. Coffee pots sputtered to life, filling the air with warmth she didn't have time to enjoy. 3 jobs, 7 days a week, no breaks, no rest. Little Jake, her 8-year-old son, sat at the kitchen table, coloring a picture with crayons that had long lost their sharpness. He looked up at her with wide brown eyes, a smile barely visible, holding a crayon like it might be a lifeline. Emily tried to smile back, but her lips felt heavy, her face tired. The apartment smelled faintly of yesterday's laundry, burnt toast and lingering coffee. Bills lay stacked on the counter, unopened, a constant reminder of how thinly stretched they were. The walls seemed smaller than ever, pressing in, closing her in with the endless responsibilities she carried alone. "Mom, will you see my picture?" Jake's voice was soft, hesitant, as if afraid to demand attention. Emily's heart clenched, but she only nodded. "Of course, sweetheart. Later, okay?" She kissed his forehead, grabbed her worn jacket, and headed out the door. The city streets were already buzzing with life, and she melted into the crowd, another faceless figure racing through the day. But in her chest, a quiet hope remained, that today, somehow, might be different. Emily's first stop was the diner, a small place that smelled of frying bacon and stale coffee. She pulled her apron over her worn clothes, tying it tight, as if it could somehow hold her together. Orders shouted over the clatter of plates, customers impatient, tips never enough. It was a rhythm she had learned to survive, not enjoy. Her feet ached, her back screamed, but she moved with practiced precision. She poured coffee, wiped counters, and smiled at strangers who didn't know her story. Behind the counter, she caught herself glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes until she could leave and head to the supermarket. Meanwhile, little Jake sat alone in their apartment, drawing the same picture over and over. His small hands trembled slightly as he traced the lines, coloring carefully, as if each stroke could hold on to his mother's love until she returned. He whispered to the crayons, narrating stories she would never hear. By mid-morning, Emily was already exhausted, yet she forced herself to keep moving. Life had taught her that stopping wasn't an option. She swallowed hard, pushing the fatigue down, reminding herself she did this for Jake. Every drop of sweat, every aching muscle, every long hour, it was all for him. And somewhere, far away from the diner and the supermarket aisles, a tiny hope lingered. A hope that one day her sacrifices would be seen, her love acknowledged, and maybe, just maybe, Jake would surprise her in a way that made it all worth it. By midday, Emily had already clocked 5 hours of work. Yet her mind was never fully at the job. Every beep of the cash register, every shouted order, every scanned item reminded her of Jake waiting at home. She felt the tug in her chest, a mix of exhaustion and love so strong it ached. The supermarket aisle stretched endlessly before her. She stocked shelves, arranging cans and boxes with mechanical precision, her thoughts drifting to her son. Did he eat breakfast? Did he finish his homework? Did he smile today, even once? She pushed the questions aside, focusing on the task at hand, but the weight in her chest never lifted. Meanwhile, back in the apartment, Jake sat quietly at the kitchen table. His crayons were scattered across the surface, and a half-finished drawing of a sun smiled faintly on the page. He glanced at the clock, then out the window, as if expecting his mother to appear any second. He hugged his small knees to his chest, whispering stories to the paper, making her presence felt even when she wasn't there. By the time Emily's shift ended at the supermarket, her body felt like it had run a marathon, yet she still had another job ahead, the night shift at the call center. Her heart tightened at the thought of leaving Jake alone for even a few more hours, but she swallowed her fatigue and pushed onward. Sacrifice had become routine, love had become endurance, and in that quiet, unnoticed moment, Jake picked up one of his crayon drawings and held it close, whispering softly, "Mom will see this soon. She has to." A promise, a hope, a tiny spark of what was to come. The apartment was dark when Emily finally returned, her coat heavy on her shoulders, her shoes leaving faint prints on the worn carpet. The smell of leftover dinners and the faint scent of crayons greeted her. She set down her bag quietly, afraid of waking Jake, yet secretly hoping he was still awake. She found him in the living room, curled up on the rug, his small body half covered by a blanket, crayons scattered around him. His eyes lit up the moment he saw her, a tired but genuine smile spreading across his face. Emily's heart squeezed painfully. Exhaustion collided with relief. Love and guilt all at once. "Mom, I was waiting for you," Jake whispered, his voice soft, barely audible over the hum of the refrigerator. He held up a drawing, a house, a sun, and a stick figure holding another smaller stick figure's hand. Emily knelt down beside him, taking the paper in her hands. She traced the lines with her fingers, feeling the care, the intention, the longing behind each stroke. "I see it, baby," she said softly, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "I see everything you made for me." Jake's tiny shoulders relaxed, and he leaned against her for the briefest moment, soaking in the comfort of her presence. For Emily, the weight of the world seemed to pause. In that room, amidst crayons, drawings, and quiet warmth, the chaos of 3 jobs and endless responsibilities faded. Little did she know, this was just the beginning. A small spark had ignited in her son's heart, a spark that would soon surprise her in ways she never imagined. The next morning, Emily returned from her first job, exhausted but moving with practiced rhythm. She dropped her keys into the bowl by the door and called out, "Jake, I'm home." The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Her heart tightened. She followed the faint sound of shuffling into the living room and froze. Jake was standing, or rather trying to stand, on a little makeshift stage he had built from couch cushions. His small hands held a crumpled piece of paper tightly. "Mom, I made this for you," he said, his voice trembling with excitement and nerves. Emily blinked, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. She walked over slowly, kneeling to meet his wide-eyed gaze. "For me," he handed her the paper. It was messy, colorful, and covered in scribbles, hearts, and stick figures. But in the center, in wobbly letters, were the words, "I love you, Mom. You're my hero." Tears sprang unbidden to Emily's eyes. She pulled him close, holding him tightly, breathing in the warmth, the life, the love he had poured into that simple note. "Jake, this is the best gift I've ever received," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. For a moment, the apartment felt lighter, the walls less confining. The bills, the 3 jobs, the endless struggle, it all faded into the background. Here, in her son's eyes, she saw admiration, love, and a spark of pride that mirrored her own hidden hopes. And in that moment, Emily realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest surprise doesn't come from the world outside. It comes from the heart you've nurtured, the love you've poured, and the little hands that remember every sacrifice. The following morning, Emily stumbled into the kitchen, exhausted but determined to start the day. She rubbed her eyes, coffee in hand, expecting the usual quiet. Jake buried in his coloring or watching cartoons silently. Instead, she froze. The kitchen table was transformed. Flour dusted the surface like morning snow, cookie cutters scattered around, and tiny footprints streaked across the floor. And in the middle of it all stood Jake, wearing her oversized apron, a triumphant grin on his face. "Mom, look," he shouted, holding up a slightly lopsided cookie shaped like a heart. "I made breakfast for you." Emily blinked, her mouth slightly open. Her exhaustion melted into disbelief, awe, and overwhelming love. She took a careful step forward, trying not to disturb the tiny masterpiece. "Jake, you did this?" "Yes, for you," he said, eyes sparkling, "because you worked so hard, and I wanted to make something for you." Tears pricked Emily's eyes. She knelt beside him, brushing flour from his cheek. You didn't have to, baby, but thank you. From the bottom of my heart." Jake beamed, proud and innocent, unaware of the emotional weight his small gesture carried. For Emily, it wasn't just cookies. It was the recognition, the love, the unspoken words he had held inside. In that small, flour-dusted kitchen, the day suddenly felt lighter. The struggles of 3 jobs, sleepless nights, and endless worry faded for a fleeting moment, replaced by the warmth of a simple, heartfelt surprise. Later that evening, the apartment was quiet again, but not with the usual heaviness. Emily sat on the worn sofa, sipping lukewarm tea, feeling the ache of her long day in her bones. She didn't notice Jake tiptoeing over with a small notebook clutched in his hands. "Mom, can we draw together?" he asked softly, his voice hesitant but hopeful. Emily looked up, fatigue etched across her face. Yet something in Jake's eyes pulled her in. She set her tea aside and nodded. "Of course, sweetheart." They sat on the floor, crayons scattered between them, the notebook open. Jake leaned against her, tiny shoulder brushing hers, and together they began to fill the pages with suns, flowers, and stick figures holding hands. No words were needed, only the gentle rhythm of shared creativity, laughter bubbling quietly as mistakes were pointed out and corrected with silly faces and whispered jokes. For Emily, it was a revelation. The apartment felt larger, brighter. The weight of exhaustion softened, replaced by a quiet joy she hadn't felt in months. Every crayon stroke, every laugh, every glance exchanged was a reminder that even amidst the struggle, moments like this could exist, fragile, fleeting, and beautiful. And somewhere deep inside, Emily realized these small, quiet moments were the true gifts of motherhood. Not the recognition from the world, not the perfect bills paid or meals cooked, but the simple, unspoken connection with the little person who loved her most. The next afternoon, Emily returned from her second job, feeling the familiar ache in her shoulders and the tightness in her chest. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, expecting the usual quiet apartment. But something felt different. The air carried a faint scent of vanilla and cinnamon. Her eyes followed the aroma to the living room, where Jake stood nervously, hiding something behind his back. "Mom, I have a surprise for you," he whispered, his small face serious yet beaming with anticipation. Emily crouched down, curiosity piqued. "What is it, baby?" With a deep breath, Jake extended his hands, revealing a tiny handmade card. The paper was folded unevenly, covered in scribbles, hearts, and stick figures. But in the center, in big, uneven letters, it said, "Thank you, Mom. You're the best mom in the whole world." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, blurring the edges of the room. She took the card, pressed it to her chest, and pulled Jake into a tight embrace. "Oh, Jake, this means everything to me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Jake hugged her back, small arms wrapping as tightly as they could, and whispered, "I love you, Mom. I wanted you to know." In that simple, unpolished card, Emily saw every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every ounce of love she had poured into her son reflected back at her. For the first time in weeks, the apartment felt warm, full of life and hope. And Emily knew, without a doubt, that these small gestures, these quiet, heartfelt surprises, were stronger than any exhaustion or struggle. They were proof that love, even in the hardest moments, could shine brightly. That evening, after Emily returned from her last job, the apartment was unusually quiet. She dropped her bag by the door and sank into the couch, closing her eyes for just a moment. A soft sound pulled her from her thoughts, a faint melody humming. She opened her eyes to see Jake in the corner of the living room, holding a small, battered toy keyboard. His fingers pressed down clumsily, creating a wobbly tune. "Mom, I want to play for you," he said shyly, eyes wide and hopeful. Emily's heart clenched. Despite the long day, despite the exhaustion clawing at her body, she moved closer and knelt beside him. "Show me, baby," she whispered. Jake's small hands danced across the keys, the notes uneven but full of intention. He hummed along, his voice blending with the keyboard in a melody that was awkward, imperfect, yet achingly beautiful. Emily watched, tears streaming, as her son poured everything he had, love, gratitude, joy, into this tiny performance. By the final note, Jake looked up, eyes shining. "Did you like it, Mom?" Emily took a deep breath, brushing flour-dusted strands of hair from her face, and hugged him tightly. "I loved it more than anything, Jake. You just made my whole day." In that moment, Emily realized something powerful. These small, unpolished acts of love, a crayon drawing, a cookie, a homemade concert, were more meaningful than any grand gesture. Her son had found ways to surprise her, to show her love in the purest, most heartfelt way. And for Emily, the long hours, the 3 jobs, and the exhaustion didn't seem so heavy anymore, because Jake had reminded her why she was fighting, why she was persevering, and why love, even in the smallest forms, was always worth it. The next weekend, Emily returned home from her 3 jobs, muscles aching, mind foggy, ready to collapse on the couch. But when she opened the door, she froze. The apartment had been transformed. Balloons floated near the ceiling, streamers draped across the walls, and a small banner read, "I love you, Mom." Emily blinked, disbelief written across her face. "Jake, what is all this?" From the corner, Jake emerged, grinning from ear to ear, holding a homemade gift-wrapped box. "It's a surprise for you, Mom. I wanted to make you happy." Emily dropped her bags and ran to him, her heart swelling. "Baby, I can't believe you did all this." Jake opened the box to reveal a scrapbook he had secretly made over the past weeks. Inside were drawings, tiny notes and photographs of the two of them together, each page a testament to their shared love, perseverance, and moments that Emily had almost missed in the chaos of her busy life. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged him tightly. "Jake, this is the most amazing gift anyone has ever given me," Jake whispered, small but proud. "Because you're my hero, Mom. I wanted you to know I see everything you do for me, and I love you so much." Emily held him close, realizing that all the exhaustion, all the sacrifices, all the lonely nights had led to this. A moment where her heart was full, and her love reflected back at her in the purest, most magical way. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt completely seen, completely loved, and completely proud. Not of what she did for the world, but of what they had built together in their quiet little apartment. A bond stronger than any struggle, a love deeper than any hardship, and a joy brighter than any exhaustion. That evening, Emily sat on the edge of the couch, still holding the scrapbook Jake had made for her. The apartment was quiet again, the balloons and streamers gently swaying in the evening breeze coming through the open window. She traced her fingers over his small handwriting, the drawings, the little notes of love, and felt her heart swell. Jake crawled up beside her, leaning his head against her shoulder. "Mom, did you like it?" he asked softly. Emily hugged him close, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "I loved it, baby. More than anything. You've given me something no one else ever could." She looked around the apartment, seeing all the little touches he had added, the way he had hidden the photographs, the colorful crayons left in neat piles, the small surprises he had planned over the weeks. Emily realized, with a mixture of awe and humility, that her son had been watching, learning, and appreciating every sacrifice she made. And suddenly, it hit her. All those long hours, the 3 jobs, the exhaustion, the quiet loneliness, they hadn't gone unnoticed. Her love, her dedication, had been mirrored back at her in the purest, most heartfelt way. Jake's surprise wasn't just a gift. It was a revelation. For the first time in a long while, Emily didn't feel like she was carrying the weight of the world alone. She felt seen, appreciated, and most importantly, loved. In that quiet living room, surrounded by crayon marks, photographs, and small handmade treasures, Emily understood something powerful. Love, persistence, and sacrifice, no matter how small or unnoticed, always find their way back. A few days later, Emily returned home from a long shift, weary and carrying the weight of another exhausting day. She expected the usual quiet apartment, but instead, a delicious aroma wafted through the air. Following the scent, she entered the kitchen and froze. There was Jake standing on a small stool, apron tied around his tiny frame, carefully stirring a bowl of pancake batter. Flour dusted his cheeks, and a triumphant smile spread across his face. "Mom, I'm making breakfast for you," he announced, eyes shining with pride. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She knelt beside him, brushing a stray crumb from his cheek. "Jake, this is amazing. Did you do all of this by yourself?" He nodded eagerly. "I wanted to do something special for you. Because you work so hard. You deserve it, Mom." Tears threatened to spill down Emily's cheeks. In that moment, she realized that the love and effort she had poured into her son were returning to her in the most beautiful and unexpected ways. This wasn't just breakfast. It was a heartfelt surprise, a small act of gratitude from a little boy who adored his mother. They cooked together, laughter filling the kitchen, batter spilling onto the counter, and pancakes occasionally flipping onto the floor. It was messy, imperfect, chaotic, and utterly perfect. For Emily, it was a reminder that even amidst exhaustion and sacrifice, moments of pure joy could be found, and that sometimes the greatest surprises came from the smallest hands, full of love and gratitude. That night, after Emily had returned from her final job, she found Jake sitting on his bed, a small envelope clutched tightly in his hands. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast a warm light across his face, highlighting the seriousness in his little eyes. "Mom, I wrote something for you," he whispered, holding out the envelope. Emily took it gently, curious and a little apprehensive. "You did this all by yourself?" Jake nodded, his tiny shoulders straight with pride. "I wanted to tell you how much I love you, and how brave you are." Emily opened the envelope slowly, unfolding the paper inside. It was covered in his childish handwriting, decorated with hearts, suns, and stick figures. But the words hit her like a wave. "Mom, you work so hard and never give up. You are my hero. I love you more than anything. Thank you for everything you do for me. You are the best mom in the world." Tears streamed down Emily's face as she sank onto the bed beside him, pulling him into a tight embrace. "Jake, this is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me," she whispered, her voice breaking. He hugged her back, small arms wrapping around her neck, and whispered, "I just wanted you to know, Mom, that I see you, I love you." In that moment, Emily felt something shift deep inside her. The exhaustion, the long hours, the sacrifices, they all felt lighter because her love had been mirrored back at her in the purest, most heartfelt way. And for the first time in weeks, Emily didn't feel alone. She felt cherished, appreciated, and most importantly, loved by the small boy who had become her world. A few days later, Emily returned home from her last shift, dragging her tired feet into the apartment. The door was slightly ajar, and she paused, sensing something unusual. As she stepped inside, her eyes widened. The living room had been transformed into a tiny party scene. Colorful balloons floated near the ceiling, streamers draped across the walls, and a banner read, "We love you, Mom." "Jake, what is all this?" Emily asked, her voice trembling, exhaustion mixing with astonishment. Jake ran over, eyes sparkling with pride. "It's for you, Mom, because you work so hard every day, and I wanted to do something special." Emily knelt beside him, overwhelmed. "Baby, you didn't have to. This is incredible." Jake beamed and handed her a small cake he had decorated with frosting and sprinkles, slightly lopsided but full of love. "I made this too, just for you." Tears blurred Emily's vision as she hugged him tightly. "Jake, this is the most amazing surprise ever. I love it, and I love you so much." They sat together on the floor, surrounded by the little party Jake had created. He had included handmade cards, drawings, and even a small playlist of songs they both loved. Emily felt her heart swell. Every exhaustion-filled moment, every sacrifice, every lonely shift seemed to have led to this, a simple, heartfelt celebration of their love. In that tiny, flower-dusted, balloon-filled living room, Emily realized something profound. Her son saw her, appreciated her, and loved her more than words could ever express. And sometimes, the greatest gifts come not from the world, but from the small hands of someone who loves you unconditionally. That night, after the tiny celebration had ended and Jake was tucked into bed, Emily sat alone on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp casting shadows across the apartment. She cradled a mug of tea, her hands still trembling from the day's emotional whirlwind. She thought about the past weeks, the endless shifts, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices she had made to give Jake a better life. And yet, all of that effort, all of that exhaustion, had never felt as rewarding as it did now. Opening the scrapbook Jake had made and flipping through the pages again, Emily felt tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Every crayon drawing, every note, every little detail spoke of love, appreciation, and a bond that had deepened in ways she could never have imagined. Emily realized something powerful. She hadn't just been surviving. She had been building something unbreakable with her son, a relationship rooted in love, trust, and shared moments, big and small. And even amidst the challenges of life, she understood that these small, heartfelt gestures from Jake were reminders that her efforts were seen, her love returned, and her sacrifices had mattered. For the first time in a long while, Emily didn't feel weary or alone. She felt proud, cherished, and profoundly connected to the little boy who had become her whole world. In the quiet of that night, Emily whispered softly to herself, "We've made it together." And in the distance, she could almost hear the echo of Jake's laughter, carrying the promise of many more moments filled with love, surprises, and joy. A few mornings later, Emily returned home from her second job, exhausted and expecting the usual quiet apartment. But as she stepped inside, something caught her eye on the kitchen table. A small, neatly wrapped package with a hand-drawn tag that read, "For Mom, from Jake." Emily picked it up carefully, curiosity and wonder filling her tired mind. "Jake, what is this?" she called softly. From the corner, Jake appeared, holding a chair slightly too big for him and grinning proudly. "Open it, Mom. I made it for you." Emily untied the ribbon and opened the box to reveal a handmade picture frame, crafted from popsicle sticks, colored carefully and decorated with stickers, little hearts, and sparkles. Inside the frame was a photo of her and Jake, smiling after one of their pancake mornings. Tears filled Emily's eyes. She lifted Jake into her lap, hugging him tightly. "Oh, baby, this is beautiful. I love it so much." Jake leaned his small head against hers. "I wanted you to have something special, to remember me and how much I love you." Emily kissed his forehead, feeling a rush of emotion she hadn't felt in years. All the long hours, all the hard work, all the lonely nights were worth it. Her son's love and thoughtfulness had created a moment of pure joy that nothing else could replace. And as they sat together in the cozy kitchen, the morning sun streaming through the window, Emily realized that these tiny, heartfelt gifts from her son weren't just surprises. They were reminders of the unbreakable bond they shared, a bond stronger than any hardship life could throw at them. One chilly evening, Emily returned home, tired from her 3 jobs, expecting the usual quiet apartment. But as she opened the door, she noticed soft music playing from the living room. Curious, she stepped inside. There, in the center of the room, stood Jake, with his little toy microphone and a small keyboard he had dragged from the corner. "Mom, I want to perform something for you," he announced, eyes sparkling with excitement. Emily knelt down, heart swelling. "For me, baby?" Jake nodded eagerly. Taking a deep breath, he began to sing a song he had secretly learned over the past few weeks. Simple words, heartfelt melody, dedicated entirely to her. His voice was small, but filled with emotion, a mix of love, gratitude, and joy. Tears streamed down Emily's face as she listened, captivated. Every note, every word carried the depth of his feelings, the appreciation for her sacrifices, and the pure, unfiltered love only a child could give. When the song ended, Jake looked up at her, hopeful and shy. "Did you like it, Mom?" Emily enveloped him in a tight embrace, pressing her cheek against his. "I loved it. More than anything in the world, Jake. You've made me so happy." In that moment, Emily realized that all the exhaustion, the sleepless nights, and the 3 jobs didn't just provide for him. They had nurtured a love and bond that now shone brightly, uncontainable, and beautiful. Her son had surprised her again, but this time it wasn't just a gift or a note. It was his heart, performed for her. For Emily, the tiredness melted away, replaced by a profound sense of joy and gratitude. She held him close, whispering, "You're my greatest gift, baby, always." The next weekend, Emily decided to take a rare day off from all her jobs. She wanted to spend the entire day with Jake, doing something special, just the 2 of them. They stepped into the small park near their apartment, sunlight streaming through the trees, birds chirping in the background. Jake's eyes lit up as he ran ahead, small sneakers kicking up fallen leaves. "Mom, look at this," he called, pointing to a patch of wildflowers. Emily smiled, following him slowly, soaking in his excitement. "Wow, baby, these are beautiful." Jake picked a small bunch and ran back to her, handing them over. "For you, Mom, because you make everything beautiful for me." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she took the flowers, holding them close to her heart. "Jake, you're amazing, thank you." They spent the afternoon exploring the park, laughing as they climbed small hills, watched the squirrels, and even danced under the shade of a large oak tree. Emily twirled Jake gently, lifting him up in her arms, spinning slowly as he squealed with delight. For Emily, the day was magical. It wasn't about the jobs, the bills, or the exhaustion. It was about these moments, these memories, this bond that had grown stronger than anything else. She realized that sometimes the greatest surprises aren't gifts or letters, but the shared experiences that fill your heart with joy. As the sun began to set, Jake held Emily's hand tightly, looking up at her with pure love. "Mom, today is the best day ever." Emily hugged him close, whispering, "It's the best day because of you, baby. Always because of you." It was a Friday evening, and Emily had just returned from her 3rd job, utterly exhausted. She quietly opened the door, expecting the usual tired silence, but the apartment felt different. From the living room, soft, twinkling lights glimmered. Candles flickered safely in jars, illuminating the space with a warm glow. Jake stood at the center, holding a small, wrapped box and beaming proudly. "Mom, I have something for you," he whispered, eyes wide with excitement. Emily set down her bag slowly, her heart already stirring. "Jake, what is this?" He held up the box. "Open it." Inside was a tiny handcrafted coupon book, each page decorated in colorful markers, glitter, and stickers. On each page was a promise from Jake: breakfast in bed, extra hugs, a movie night together, help with chores, a surprise dance, and more. All small acts of love, thought, and shared time. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she hugged him fiercely. Jake, this is incredible. I can't believe you did this. Jake smiled shyly, brushing a lock of hair from her face. I wanted to show you that I see you, Mom. All your hard work, all your love. I love you so much. Emily held him tight, feeling her exhaustion melt away. In that moment, she realized something profound. The countless long hours, the struggles, the sacrifices. They had built not just a life, but a deep, unbreakable bond with her son. The apartment, once filled with tired silence, now overflowed with love, warmth, and light. Emily laughed through her tears, whispering, "You've given me the best gift ever, Jake, your heart." And Jake, small but full of love, leaned into her shoulder, feeling safe and proud. Together they had created a world where love outshone fatigue, gratitude replaced exhaustion, and every sacrifice had been mirrored back with joy, surprise, and pure, unfiltered love. It was a night neither of them would ever forget. A night where a little boy reminded his mother that her efforts mattered, her love was seen, and their bond was the greatest treasure of all. The next morning, sunlight poured through the apartment windows, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. Emily woke to find Jake already up, sitting cross-legged on the floor, with the coupon book open in front of him. He looked up and grinned, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Mom, today we can use a coupon," he said, holding one up proudly. Emily smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. She stretched and hugged him tightly. "Which one, baby?" Jake pointed to a page decorated with hearts. "Dance with me in the living room." They cleared a small space in the living room. Emily held Jake's tiny hands, and together, they twirled and swayed to the soft music playing from her phone. Laughter filled the room, echoing like a symphony of joy, washing away months of fatigue and worry. As they danced, Emily glanced around the apartment, the small surprises, the handmade gifts, the decorations, the warmth of their bond. It all felt like a rebirth. She realized that despite the struggles, despite the exhaustion, they had created a home filled with love, gratitude, and shared moments that no hardship could erase. Jake spun and giggled, leaning into her as they slowed, the music fading. Emily kissed his forehead, whispering softly, "Thank you, baby, for reminding me what really matters." He smiled, his small hands squeezing hers. "I love you, Mom, and I'll always try to make you happy." Emily felt a profound peace settle in her chest. She had survived the long nights, the endless shifts, the loneliness, but more importantly, she had built an unbreakable bond with her son, a bond filled with love, joy, and hope. And in that quiet morning, as they held each other and laughed together, Emily knew that no matter what challenges came next, they would face them together. Their story wasn't just about struggle or survival. It was about love, gratitude, and the small, powerful ways a child's heart can heal a parent's soul. For Emily and Jake, every day now held the promise of laughter, surprises, and unspoken magic. A new beginning, bright with hope and boundless love.